Greetings, friends. You are watching Ruslan Belov's channel. In this episode, we will analyze in detail the situation in Ukraine as of February 2nd, 2026. Over the past 24 hours, a great many significant events have occurred. So let us move straight to the analysis. The State Energy Company of Ukraine today officially confirmed the end of the so-called energy truce. According to their data, on the night of February 2nd, as well as throughout the last 24 hours, the Russian Federation has once again begun launching strikes against Ukraine's energy infrastructure facilities. Furthermore, as of today, information is coming in from various analysts, pro-Ukrainian, pro-Western and neutral experts alike, regarding the high probability of a large-scale strike by Russia on the night of February 3rd. According to their estimates, this could involve a massive attack using hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles and dozens of missiles. In fact, this is precisely the scenario we have been discussing over the past few weeks. Specialists also suggest that the primary targets of the strike could be the city of Kyiv and the Kyiv region. In connection with this, the Ukrainian side is already taking appropriate preparatory measures. Pay attention also to the political background. Today, practically all European politicians, without exception, including specifically the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs Kaja Kallas, have begun making statements claiming that Kyiv is allegedly ready to make serious and painful concessions. One gets the impression that attempts are currently being made to win 1, 2, or at most 3 days, to use this time to resolve issues related to the functioning of the Starlink system. We will closely monitor further developments. Now let us move directly to the line of combat contact and examine what has happened over the past 24 hours. I emphasize once again, the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine confirms the strikes on energy facilities. At the same time, a significant portion of today's news is coming specifically from the Dnipropetrovsk region. It is reported that strikes were carried out on mines in the area of the settlement of Ternovka. Specifically, this refers to the Zapadno-Donbasskaya mine, which by all appearances was hit. According to information from open sources, as well as data from the author of this video, it is at this specific mine where coal is extracted for those Ukrainian power plants that continue to function at this time. Thus, the facility definitely belongs to critical energy infrastructure. Speaking of active power plants, satellite imagery was also updated today. We see that the power plant in Lviv continues to operate and is actively emitting smoke, functioning at its maximum capacity. The Burshtyn power plant is also operating at full capacity. A similar situation is observed at the Zmiev power plant in the Kharkiv region. According to available data, it is also being utilized to the maximum. At the same time, according to open sources, as a result of strikes carried out in January, the combined heat and power plant number 6, TETS 6, located in the eastern part of Kyiv, was apparently completely destroyed and is beyond restoration. Experts note that in this case, building a new station would be easier than attempting to restore the destroyed one. Based on this, the anticipated strike that may occur tonight will likely pursue similar goals, namely an attempt to disable another power plant on the territory of Ukraine in such a way that its restoration becomes impossible. Also today, new video footage appeared from the area of the city of Zaporizhzhia. These materials recorded the positions of an S-300 division as well as a HIMARS system launcher. Regarding the S-300, according to available data, these positions were hit in the Zaporizhzhia area, not far from Vilniansk. As for the HIMARS system, according to the author of the video and information from open sources, this launcher was destroyed in the Kharkiv direction. Moving further, we return directly to the front line. Let us begin with the northern directions. The Russian army continues to increase pressure on the Sumy sector. Today, certain mapping sources confirm the advancement of Russian units in the areas of the settlements of Beloberezhka, Komarovka, and Sidorovka. Also, another part of the forest massif has come under Russian control. Additionally, over the past 24 hours, information has been received regarding massive strikes on the city of Konotop and on the railway infrastructure. The Konotop railway station is an important logistics element, ensuring movement toward northeastern Ukraine and the city of Sumy. In fact, a key logistics hub is located here. It is not excluded that during the last 24 hours, the Ukrainian side attempted to transfer reserves to stabilize the situation in the area of the M02 highway. However, by all appearances, these reinforcements may not have reached their destination. It is also possible that part of the forces was being directed from Konotop towards Sumy, where the Russian army continues its active offensive, the pace of which is only increasing. Information is appearing more frequently regarding serious problems on the Ukrainian side with personnel, both in terms of numbers and its even distribution along the defensive line. Russian units are actively taking advantage of this situation. Today, the pro-Ukrainian mapping team Deep State published an extremely interesting update. According to this data, in the area of the settlement of Pokrovka, located northeast of Krasnopilya, Russian forward groups or sabotage units were recorded. Let me remind you that since December 2025, heavy combat operations have been ongoing in this direction along the Ryazne-Grabovskoye line. In December and January, we already observed map corrections in the Grabovskoye area, and now similar changes are being recorded in the Pokrovka area. Thus, taking into account both the new corrections and the previously formed bridgehead in the Grabovskoye area, it can be assumed that both directions of the offensive are converging toward Krasnopilya, from both the southeast and the northeast. Apparently, Krasnopilya is being considered by the Russian side as one of the priority targets. In the future, this area may be used as a bridgehead for advancement in a northwestern direction, already toward the southeastern outskirts of the city of Sumy. Next, we move to the Kharkiv sector of the front, from where a significant number of reports are also arriving. Let me remind you that just yesterday, pro-Russian experts reported the advancement of Russian units in the area of the settlement of Zelen. After the publication of the Ministry of Defense report, corresponding changes were made to the map. According to available information, the Russian army is trying to build on its success and advance toward the settlement of Vesele, which is an important defensive hub for the armed forces of Ukraine, to the northeast of Kharkiv, as well as in the direction of Zaporizhzhia. It is possible that an attempt is being made to either cut or establish physical control over the road between Lipsy and the northeastern part of the so-called Vovchansk bridgehead in the Kharkiv region. Movement is also recorded along the Siversky Donets River in the areas of the settlements of Grafske and Semenovka. Minor corrections to the front line are also noted here. If we compare the map as of February 1, 2026, with today's data, the changes look moderate. However, it is as a result of these corrections that Russian units managed to secure a fairly serious strongpoint with further directions toward Losevka and Verkhnya Pisarivka. This refers specifically to this section of the front. In addition to this, information is coming in regarding the gradual advancement of Russian forces along the Vovcha River, both on the northern and southern banks, toward the northeast of the Kharkiv region, in the direction of the settlements of Degtyana, Krugel, and Nestern. Thus, over the past 24 hours, corresponding changes have appeared on the map. The Russian army is gradually forming a kind of buffer zone along the Vovcha River, trying to connect two bridgeheads, the Vovchansk bridgehead and the northeastern Kharkiv bridgehead. In the future, an attempt to unite this section with the bridgehead along the Oskil River and the state border is not excluded, after which a more large-scale advancement toward Veliki Burluk and Bilyi Kolodiaz is possible. As for the Kupiansk direction, today it can be said with reasonable confidence that the fog of war is gradually dissipating, both over Kupiansk itself and over the entire Kupiansk agglomeration. While over the last 3 months, most publications were pro-Ukrainian in nature and described allegedly organized actions to contain and displace Russian units, the situation has changed noticeably over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Now a reverse dynamic is clearly visible. The Russian army has again transitioned to active offensive operations. Advancement is noted in the areas of Petropavlivka, Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi, Kurilivka, Podoli, as well as in Kupiansk itself. Over the last 2 weeks, most corrections to the front line have been carried out in favor of Russian units. This may indicate that in the near future, the general picture in this direction will become finally clear. Finally, we move to the Sloviansk direction. Russian units continue attempts to level the front line between the northern and southeastern parts of the city of Lyman. This refers to the desire to unite two bridgeheads along the city limits, in order to subsequently transition to a broader offensive toward the western and southwestern outskirts of the settlement. Currently, actions are being taken to compress and eliminate individual pockets of resistance. The Ukrainian army, by all appearances, is conducting a regrouping directly within the city limits. At the same time, additional reserves and reinforcements are regularly being sent toward Lyman. However, the Russian side tightly controls all major highways, and every time a unit of equipment approaches either the crossings or the city itself, it is struck almost immediately with the use of unmanned aerial vehicles. Today, an extremely important situational update is arriving from the East Sloviansk direction. A number of neutral mapping resources have made changes in the area of the settlement of Zakotne over the past 24 hours. As a result of these corrections, it has become clear that units of the armed forces of the Russian Federation were able to occupy strategically significant heights located along the Siversky Donets River on the section between the settlements of Kriva Luka and Zakotne. It is precisely these heights, which hold key tactical importance, that the Russian units have entered. Moreover, according to information from open sources and taking into account the location of strongpoints in this sector, it can be concluded that several vital fortified positions have likely passed under the control of the Russian army. In fact, a breakthrough of the armed forces of Ukraine's defense occurred in this direction, after which further advancement will apparently be carried out along the line of heights toward the settlement of Kriva Luka. This sector is one of the key elements of the entire defensive system of the armed forces of Ukraine in the East Sloviansk direction. Heavy and fierce battles are currently taking place for it. The stability of the Ukrainian defense along the line of the settlements of Kaliniki and Reznikovka directly depends on holding these heights. In the event of the final loss of control over this boundary, Ukrainian units will likely eventually have to retreat further west, toward the settlement of Rye-Oleksandrivka, as well as into the large forest massif located between Rye-Oleksandrivka and Mykolaiivka. Thus, it is in this sector that the formation of a new defensive line may begin, already positioned before the eastern outskirts of the city of Sloviansk. Furthermore, information appeared today regarding the further advancement of Russian units in the area of the M03 highway. A number of pro-Russian experts made loud and resonant statements claiming that the settlement of Nikiforivka has allegedly also come under the control of Russian troops. However, as of the evening of February 2nd, confirming video materials have not yet been published. Nevertheless, considering that such reports are being circulated by sources with a high degree of reliability, the probability of visual confirmation appearing in the near future remains extremely high. On the Costantinovka sector of the front, combat operations continue predominantly for the outskirts of the city. Advancement here is still being carried out at a relatively slow pace. The Ukrainian side regularly transfers new units and additional forces to the Kostiantinivka area, including a significant number of FPV drone operators. According to data published by various units associated with this direction, dozens or even hundreds of drones may be over the city simultaneously. Despite such dense activity by unmanned aviation, Russian units are managing to gradually move forward. Over the past 24 hours, another correction of the front line was recorded in this sector, according to which Russian troops were able to advance and significantly improve their positions east of Kostiantinivka, in the area of the so-called Kostiantinivka Dachas. Currently, a large amount of video material has already appeared in this direction, in which one can observe the movement of equipment of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, as well as attempts by Ukrainian FPV drone operators to strike this transport. In the Dobropilia direction, the Russian army continues active operations to level the front line between the settlements of Rodinske and Dorozhne. Just the day before, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reported a significant improvement in the positions of Russian troops in the area of the small settlement of Suketske. Based on this report, corresponding changes were made to the map. Earlier, we discussed the situation in the Suketska area and suggested that the garrison of the armed forces of Ukraine had found itself encircled here as a result of the advancement of Russian units along the railway line between Rodinska and Belitska. Judging by the information published by the Ministry of Defense, Ukrainian troops were either given an order to withdraw or were forced to retreat independently from this sector toward Belitska. As a result, significant corrections were made to the map over yesterday and today, and the front line here has become practically leveled. At the moment, individual positions of the armed forces of Ukraine likely still remain along the railway tracks. However, after the entire section of the railway from Rodinsky to Dorozhny passes under the control of the Russian army, one can expect more active offensive attempts toward Belitske, especially in the low-lying areas of the terrain. At the same time, some mapping services are already reporting today the beginning of the advancement of Russian units toward the northern part of the city of Belitske, in the area of the Belitska mine. Nevertheless, confirming video materials for this episode have not yet been presented. At the same time, the city of Dobropilya is actively preparing for defense. Relevant measures have been carried out here for quite some time. The settlement is regularly struck by aerial munitions. Even from available video footage, it is clear that the city is gradually undergoing systematic destruction. Next, we move to the Zaporizhzhia direction. Here, by all appearances, the command of the armed forces of Ukraine is allocating an insufficient amount of forces and resources to stabilize the front line. According to data from the Vostok and Dnieper troop groupings, over the last quarter of a day, at least 3 settlements have passed under the confident control of Russian units. Let us start with the East Zaporizhzhia sector. According to incoming information, Russian troops have significantly improved their positions in the area of the settlement of Ternovate. Based on the report of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, as well as video materials published by the Vostok troop grouping, a correction of the map was made in the area of the settlement of Prydorozhny. If we trace the dynamics, on January 29th, the front line looked one way. On January 30th, information appeared about advancement in the Ternovate area. On January 31st and February 1st, no updates were received, and already on February 2nd, it became known about advancement in the Prydorozhny area. Based on these fragmentary data, it can be concluded that in a number of sectors of the East Zaporizhzhia direction, the second line of defense of the armed forces of Ukraine was effectively breached. In general, an echelon defense system has been built in this sector, consisting of at least 3 boundaries. The first boundary is the line along the Haicha River, with a network of strongpoints, which the Russian army crossed earlier. The second line of defense runs along the railway in the direction of Pokrovske-Zaliznichne. It is this line that was essentially breached after Prydorozhny passed under the control of Russian units. The third line of defense relies on the settlements of Rozdvianka, Vozdvizhenka, and Verkhnya Tersa. In the event of the loss of control over even one of these 3 settlements, the integrity of the entire defensive system of the Zaporizhzhia sector may be compromised. This could lead to extremely unpredictable consequences, including threats directly to the city of Zaporizhzhia. Thus, a breakthrough of the front line without a real possibility of its subsequent stabilization is possible in this direction in the near future. In the West Zaporizhzhia direction, combat operations continue in the areas of Lukyanivske, Novoyakovlivka, Stepnohirsk, and Riechne. Russian units are conducting active offensive operations, expanding the front and increasing pressure. Information is appearing more frequently regarding advancement toward Kharkiv, while the pace of the offensive here continues to increase. With a high probability, in the near future, Russian units may reach the settlement of Buryakivka. This moment can already be considered the actual beginning of the combat operations for the Kharkiv agglomeration. On this note, friends, we will conclude today's review. Thank you to everyone who stays with the channel, supports it, and watches the episodes until the end. Subscribe, hit the like button, and all the best to you.